Alright, welcome to SouFLoTV again, everybody. It's your host with the most. On this video, we're going to talk about what happens after the ICE raids go on. So, right now we know that the United States of America immigration system is going through a lot of changes. And there are a lot of rules, laws, and regulations that are being introduced. Majority of them were, listen carefully, majority of them were on the books already. They're not newly made up, or they are just being implemented now. Past administrations had decided that these were too harsh, or decided that because they have an option, do they want to pursue them? Do they want to make this the focal point of their presidency, of their rulership, their leadership? But under the Donald Trump's administration, immigration has become the focus, right? Whether it's beneficial or not, we will see in years to come, because that's when all the repercussions will be felt. Like, for instance, there are children that were born on American soil to parents that are illegal. And they're not here as single parents. You have mom and dad that are both here illegally. If you can imagine two people falling in love in a foreign country, and it's really rough there for them, but they know about the United States of America and they've made their way there together as a couple. And they've decided to stay together their whole life. So they get here and they're ducking and dodging and they're building a life together in the process of ducking and dodging. And then they become successful still with no legal papers. There's no legal out for them. And their children have begun to grow. And their children are growing and going to school and being integrated into the system and are Americanized. And then one day a new administration takes over that says, you need to go back to your country if you are here illegally. So what you end up having in the process is people being sent back to their country of birth, while their children who were born here are forced to either stay here without their parents, maybe with a relative, or in the system, foster care system, or go live in a foreign country that they had never been to before and know nothing of, in the conditions that their parents had tried so hard to escape. All right? And you're going to see repercussions from this in years to come, because what we're going to see is bitter adults, bitter at the United States of America for what they did to their parents when they could have given them other options. I'm just saying, that's what's going to happen. Glass of water. Okay, now we know that these raids go down, right? The raids are going down. Right now, Donald Trump had promised that there would be a massive scale raid. And people are looking for hundreds of thousands of people to be pounced upon, whether it's in a party, at a club. People have stopped going to nightclubs because that's one of the prime places they get people on the weekends. They enter the front of the club and they lock the door, and there's one way out, and it's the back door, and there's a big paddy wagon, we call it, waiting out back, an ICE van, and you either show some valid ID, which they will verify through some electronic device, or you go into that vehicle until you can produce some valid ID. Now, what happens after the raids? Because a lot of people wonder, well, damn, they took my family member and I don't know what the process is, how it goes, how it's going to happen. Or for those of you who just for educational sake want to know. So they grab people and then they just put them on a plane and send them out the country. How does it go? All right. This I'm sourcing from the New York Times. What happens after an ICE raid? Explaining the deportation process. So, with agents targeting recently arrived families from Central America, the federal authorities intend to arrest as many as 2,000 people this weekend. Here's how that works. With a series of coordinated deportation actions targeting recently arrived families from Central America, the federal authorities intend to arrest at least 2,000 people. I'm saying this weekend. They're just saying 2,000 people who are not eligible to remain in the country. Now, when Trump talked about the raids, he talked about it being them being the target. Recently arrived people who had gotten their paperwork to leave, but they disappeared. So in other words, then, they have made up their minds that they are not leaving. They probably came here as refugees from Central America because Central America had been in some turmoil recently, and they went and submitted paperwork to immigration trying to become legal, and they have been turned down. The operations by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents began over the weekend in places like New York, Florida, and Illinois. And it appears that they could extend well into the week, up to 10 cities. Now it's funny because I've seen a lot of news entities saying, where are the raids? There are no big scale raids going on. What happened? How come there are no big scale raids? I said this before on my channel. They're going to tell you one thing and they're going to do another thing. This is a part of the element of surprise. Okay? So news media, just like how President Trump tweeted the day when the raid was supposed to start and then pushed it back 2 weeks and claimed that it was the Republicans that asked him to stop the raids, and he will give it 2 weeks until they come up with a solution to some other problem having to do with immigration, the asylum issue. And they were not able to in Congress, so he's going ahead with the raids. And then he tweeted, or he said in a conference, that Sunday of this week the raids would start. They're not going to give you the proper days that the raids would start. So don't go looking for any massive raids like 500 ICE agents all in uniform just swoop down on one section of one city. It's not going to happen like that. They're going to pick them off 2 by 2, 1 by 1, and have collateral deportation going on. If you don't know what that is, watch my previous video where I explain what that is as well. So what happens after an immigrant is arrested and begins the legal process for removal? Well, first of all, who are they looking for? Though millions of people live in the United States without documentation and are periodically targeted for deportation, the latest raids are claimed to be aimed. They say they are aimed at. I said they are claiming to be aimed at primarily families from Central America who have been arriving in large numbers since fall, many of whom have lodged claims for asylum. Exactly what I said. With President Trump repeatedly thwarted in his attempt to slow the surge, the raids aim to deport parents and children who are not eligible to stay in the country, some within months after their arrival, as a way to deter others from coming. Those set to be arrested this week have already been ordered by immigration judges to be deported, often as a result of their failure to appear in court. Well, here's what would have happened. They would have went to court and they would have been ordered deported and they would have been held. And they knew that. They're paying attention to what is going on with the asylum laws and how the president is looking at it. Right now, that is one of his speaking points, and he's saying that the asylum laws need to be changed and adjusted. And also, he's thinking that the sooner, if you can imagine, 100 people are trying to come in. If each one comes in and you send them back as soon as they arrive, then after you get to about 25, the other 75 might say, look, they sent back the first 25 that went in through that door. So I think we need to turn back because we're probably going to be sent back just the same. So he's trying to use this as a deterrent method. They're flack from both sides because they're saying that children are coming in seeking asylum. And what kind of a country are we? They're fleeing conditions that are life-threatening, and we're sending them back to those conditions. You understand? Immigration lawyers point out, though, that they are sometimes given an order to appear without a location or a time. Or they show up in court only to be told that they were not asked to report at that time or on that day. So far, the number of arrests have been low, and typically only 20 to 30% of the targets of ICE enforcement are apprehended. ICE officials have not publicly commented on the raids, though Mr. Trump has called them a success. So typically, only 20 to 30% of the targets of ICE enforcement are apprehended. 20 to 30%. If you took a math test and you scored 20 to 30%, you would have failed, right? So 20 to 30% being apprehended out of 100% of ICE's targets tells you that there are a lot of people that run. Run means they do not stay in one place, which makes it more difficult for them to be caught. They choose a different state far away from the state that they originally came in and are documented as coming in too. For instance, if they came in through Florida, they will move out to California or Texas or Louisiana or Alabama. You understand? And that makes it very hard for ICE to even keep up with them, let alone catch them. Very few people, that's that 20-30% think it's okay to stay right where they're at. And things are going to work out because my family members are here and they're stable, and I have a stable, and they're going to fight for me, and they're held and they're sent back regardless. Now, what happens at the time of arrest? Agents must wait for their target to leave their homes voluntarily in order to arrest them. ICE does not have the authority to go kicking in anybody's door. They can knock and they can ask for, is James Brown there? We are here to speak to James Brown. We have a warrant to take him in. You have the right to not open that door. That is why some churches have been turned into sanctuaries, and with the church members that are legal citizens taking care of the people that are living, eating, sleeping, breathing inside of these churches. And ICE can't just go kick the church door in and go in and grab them. So agents must wait for the targets to leave their homes voluntarily in order to arrest them. And so they often wait near a resident before dawn to make sure they don't miss the person. So early in the morning before the sun comes up, they're lurking in the dark around the residence. And you know, people have to go to work, they have to drop kids to school, all that other stuff. And these are families, and a lot of them are families including children. So there you have it. The authorities have in the past used russes to coax their targets into cooperating, like pretending to be looking for someone else. According to Charles Cook, an immigration lawyer in Atlanta, the agents will also stake out the home days in advance with unmarked vehicles and photos of their targets. Mr. Chuck said, when people who are undocumented are arrested, they retain the basic rights such as the right to remain silent and to not consent to any searches. The authorities, they try to establish the identity of the person, which can be difficult if the target person is not answering any questions at all. But even if the targets do not confirm their identity, agents can still arrest them. If the person who is arrested says nothing and signs nothing at all, then the question is there any authority to arrest the person? Said Daniel M. Kowalski, another immigration lawyer in Colorado who is the editor of Bender's Immigration Bulletin, a journal for immigration advocates and professors. He pointed out that there have been cases in which the person was arrested, was a green card holder or a citizen or an immigrant who was not in violation of any laws. Next, they are taken to a local ICE office for processing. The agents can take up to 5 hours to complete the paperwork at the office and find a space in the detention center. So for 5 hours after that arrest, you're standing there while they're doing paperwork on you. And then they have to find a place for you, a bed, in the detention center. While a person is being processed though, a lawyer can file a motion to reopen the deportation case. Mr. Chuck said that which would immediately delay their removal from the country. Delay, in some cases, it has been delayed up to a year or even more, with them still end up being deported. And in this case, you have lawyers that prey upon people like this. It's a desperate situation. And you can imagine paying a lawyer month after month after month for 12 months straight, exhausting your finances, only to be deported anyways. I've seen stories like these and it's pretty sad. The breadwinner of the family is being deported and the family spends every penny they had to keep him in the United States of America, and they string that process along for a whole year, and after every penny has been exhausted out of their checking savings account, they deport him anyways. What you have now is a mother and a child that are both legal citizens left here to fend for themselves with not a penny in the bank. It happens. Okay? Lawyers are often granted a meeting by Skype with a client, he said, but it would take weeks or months before a hearing. So that's one way to stop the deportation process. Get you a lawyer to reopen your case. Immediately after filing that motion to reopen the deportation case, there can be no deportation. They have to go through a legal process. If you don't have a lawyer, what happens when a detainee is actually deported? Once all the legal options have been exhausted, or if the immigrant agrees for deportation, the process of physically removing the immigrant then begins. How swiftly are they deported? That depends on where they are in the US and to what country they are being sent. Not all countries agree to take them back, right? So the US is going to have to go petition some of these countries. Hey, we have some of your people here. They're in my country illegally. You need to take them back. Oh, we don't want them back. You need to keep them. Okay, we're going to exercise sanctions against your country. Okay, let's think about this. Or they have to go through your embassy in your country, and coordinate all your legal documents to make sure that things go smoothly. That security forces in that country knows that we're bringing in a bunch of people that are handcuffed and shackled and they're illegal immigrants, and who is coming back because they're a mass murderer in the US versus who's coming back because they just ran across the border and they are hiding here and we caught them. That kind of stuff. Securing the required travel documents from home countries also takes time. For Central Americans, this process can stretch 3 to 4 months. Tens of thousands of people are returned to their countries on flights chartered by ICE each year. Tens of thousands each year. Let that number sink in. Tens of thousands of people are returned to their countries on flights chartered by ICE each year. What that tells you is what? A lot of people are fighting to stay and are still losing in court, therefore being deported. I know for a fact that a plane hits Jamaica every single month with deportees aboard that plane. So much so that the news does not even cover it anymore. Another one's coming in, another one's coming in, another one's coming in, another one's coming in. It would start to drive a kind of feeling into the people that, hey, we're being flooded with deportees. And you know how we are in Jamaica, majority of the people are, with the whole deportee stigma, right? Alternatively, up to 2 detainees can be put on a commercial flight where they are handcuffed immigration lawyers said. And this was written by Adil Hassan, and he's a reporter and editor at the National Desk. He's a founding member of the Race-Related, and much of his work focuses on identity and discrimination. He started the morning briefings for NYT Now and was its inaugural writer. He also served as an editor on the International Desk. Adil graduated from Johns Hopkins and Columbia University at Adil NYT. And that is to give credit to the individual who wrote this for and in the New York Times. Alright, now you understand the process a little bit better, what happens when your loved ones or neighbors or people are caught by ICE, how ICE goes about executing it, what rights ICE has and what they cannot do, and where the process leads to, and so on and so forth. Leave your comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about this one. It's SouFLoTV. I'm out. Peace.